Hi there, this is Teri from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is this sweet card. I've added panels on the front that all hold images from the Free as a Bird stamp set. I've also used some paper from the 6-inch Subtles paper stack for the background. Now this little bird at the top I saved from a previous project, and it was when I created this card. This is the Free as a Bird stamp set, and you can see that there are 4 birds on this branch. I used the group of 3 for my first card and saved this 4th bird for this project. I have another video already on my channel showing you how I created this card. Now when I did so, I saved the offcut, so I have another little bird that I can use for today's card. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for the various elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. I'm going to use the Stitched Shapes square framelets to create all of the panels on today's card. Now this smaller one is the one I'll use to cut out my little bird. To cut out the big bird, I'll use the second largest, so one down from the largest one. And then to create the rectangular panels, I'm going to use the smallest die again for my sentiment, and then the largest one to create the one that holds the flowers. And I'll show you how to do this with the Big Shot. I'm using Whisper White card to create my rectangular panels. Now you first want to run both the square dies through your die cutting machine and cut these out. Now to create a rectangle from your square die cut, you need to use the original die again and position it on your square so it will cut the rectangle. Now you decide how wide you want your rectangular panel to be, and then if you place your die over the top of that die cut, it will fall into the stitch lines that you've already cut. Now you don't want to run it through all the way, you just want to cut that one edge to make your rectangle. So I had to turn my plate around because I had it facing the wrong way. So I'm just going to cut that first edge, and to ensure that this is all I do, I'm going to position my plate sort of halfway down the rectangle, and as soon as it drops off that plate it will stop cutting. Then I can remove the purple tape and the die, and you're left with a rectangular panel. I'm going to do the same thing for the sentiment. Now this doesn't need to be very big at all. So I'm going to place the die over the top of my square, and if you just wiggle it, it will drop into those stitch lines. And then I'm going to secure it with purple tape, and this is just a low tack tape. And then I'm going to position my plate again about halfway down that rectangle and run it through my Big Shot, and it will stop cutting as soon as it falls off that plate. And there is my panel. I'm also going to cut out my little bird now. So like I said before, I'm using the smallest of the Stitch Shape square dies for this. You just want to make sure that the die is away from that circle cutout, otherwise you won't have a straight edge when you run this through. I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink for all the stamping because I'm going to colour using the Stamping Blends alcohol markers. Now for my sentiment, I'm using a little temporary adhesive just to hold that tiny piece of card in place while I stamp it. I'm going to use my Stamp-A-Majig handle to help me position this sentiment. Now Stampin' Up no longer sells these, but you can purchase them elsewhere. If you're interested in finding out more about using this type of stamp positioner, I'll add a card at the top of the screen showing you another video with hints and tips on how to use it. Now basically, I've stamped my sentiment on the imaging sheet that comes with the Stamp-A-Majig. Now I position that sentiment where I want it to be on my panel. I add the handle to the top left hand corner, ink up my stamp, position it in the handle and slide it down to stamp it, and you've got perfect placement. You could use any type of stamp positioner to help you do this, including the Stamparatus if you prefer. I just find it quicker to use the handle. Now to remove the temporary adhesive, you just run your finger over it and that'll come away nice and cleanly. On the other rectangular panel, I'm just stamping the leaves, and these will just show mainly in the corners. So you want to stamp them twice. I'm also stamping my bird on a piece of scrap Whisper White, and this I'll cut out with a square framelit later. The other items you need to stamp are 3 large flowers, 3 small flowers, 2 buds, and you need to stamp another set of leaves because you need 2 singles. I am going to show you most of the colouring in this video, so if you don't want to watch it, just skip to the timestamp shown. Now I'm starting with all my flowers and I'm using the light Daffodil Delight, and I'm just adding this towards the base of each of the petals. Then I'm switching to the dark Daffodil Delight, and again I'm using this at the base of each of the petals, but I'm not taking it up as far as I did with the light. And then finally I'm going to switch back to the light and just blend very quickly. For the leaves on the buds, I'm using Old Olive, and I'm doing the 3-step process again, so starting with the light, adding just a touch of the dark and then blending again with the light marker. I'm colouring the sets of leaves in exactly the same way as I did those on the buds. So starting with the light, adding the dark, and when I add the dark I just generally follow the little lines on the image and colour over those, and then I can blend again with the light. The stems I'll colour with the light soft suede. For the large bird, I'm starting with light crumb cake, and I'm going to colour mainly the head, the wing, and then just around the edges of the body. Then I'm going to switch to the dark, and again I'm going to follow mostly the lines that are on the image, and then blend these together with the light. Then I'm going to switch to the light Daffodil Delight, and I'm just going to add this around his tummy area, but I'm leaving just a tiny bit of white space. Then with the dark Daffodil Delight, I'm just going to go around the edges of this, just to add a little depth, and then blend again with the light. Now I want to blend that white space in a bit more, so I'm using my colour lifter to do this. And then his beak I'm going to colour with dark Daffodil Delight. I'm using light crumb cake for the ground, and then to finish off this image I'm going round the whole thing using my light Pool Party marker, and this really makes the image pop off the card. I want to shape all the little flowers before adding them to the panels, and I'm going to use the back end of my paper piercer to do this. You can use anything that is sort of rounded and smooth. So you position it in the centre of the flower, apply pressure, and then just move in a circular motion, and that will cause the edges of the flowers to curl upwards. I've layered each of the panels onto Daffodil Delight mats, and you'll find the measurements for these on the measurement screen at the start of this video. Now, I'm only able to give you approximate measurements for the rectangles because this depends on how big you made them, and this can vary, so I couldn't be precise with the measurements here. For the panel with the large bird on it, you want to add one of the large flowers to the top left of the square, and then you should have cut out 2 single leaves. You want to slide these underneath each side, and then add one of the smaller flowers to the bottom right of the panel. I'm adding the remaining 2 large flowers to the centre of the leaf panel, and then the remaining smaller flowers I'm going to add one each side of these towards the corners, and finally I'm going to add the 2 buds, one pointing to each of the remaining corners, so it's all balanced. I've already prepared the mats for the front of my card, and I've used some of the 6-inch Subtles paper stack. This is in Calypso Coral Gingham, and I've layered that onto a Daffodil Delight mat. Now, for my first card, I didn't quite get the spacing right when I stuck the panels down, so this time I'm going to lay it out first of all and then stick them down afterwards. It's easiest to position the large bird panel first of all because this one just goes centrally towards the bottom of the card. Next I'll position the leaf panel, and this one goes in the top left half of the card. Then I can add my little bird panel, making sure the spacing's the same on either side. And finally my sentiment, which will go straight underneath the little bird. I'm going to add basic pearls to the centre of all my flowers, and I'm going to colour these first of all using the dark Calypso Coral Blends marker. Now I'm going to add 2 coats to each pearl, but they do dry almost instantly, so you can use them straight away. I've coloured 3 large pearls and 3 small pearls, so obviously the large will go to the large flowers and the smaller ones to the smaller flowers. I can now add this panel to the front of my card base, and this is in basic black, just half a standard sheet of card, scored in the middle and folded to create a portrait card. I have the mat for inside the card already prepared, and I've just decorated this with a very narrow strip of the same paper, which has been added to a strip of Daffodil Delight card. And that's it, the card is complete. I must admit, I do love this Calypso Coral with the yellow. And here's my original card again. This was So Saffron and Pool Party. I like them both, but I must admit I think I prefer the Calypso Coral one. I just love how bright it is. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, Please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.